Hi, everyone. Welcome to Trauma Talks and Truths with Nina Vasquez and Dr. Isela Garcia. We're glad to see you're here. As you hop on, let us know you're here. We were just talking, and we every time, every day when we get together, we connect. Just me and Isela at first, and we were talking about things that are happening and what's going on. And we were like, "Wait, let's just get on live and continue our conversation." So let's do that, Isela.
Hi, Emily. Hi, Emily. So good to see you here.
Yay.
We are so we're just here to kind of chat about the stuff that's happening in the United States. I'm interested, Emily, in knowing what the rumble and the talk is in Canada. Like, I'm interested in knowing that. So if you can, Emily, if you have any insights about, what you're hearing on the Canadian side of things, I'm on TikTok quite a bit, and it is different since it blacked out. I will say that it feels censored and weird, but I've been connecting or seeing more posts from people all over the world. And I am really, really enjoying that. Like, I'm really enjoying like connecting. There was a German man, there was somebody from Iceland, someone from France, someone from South Africa. It's just more and more global people are showing up on TikTok. And I love the experience of connecting with people across the world. I love that. So it's nice because it's like they have their own perspectives, and my Chinese folks. I love about the Chinese folks. Their perspectives of what's happening here and what advice they have for us, especially the folks from Germany. My goodness, they really have lots to say about what's happening here. You're not a fan of Trump at all. Yeah. Yeah. It is a transformative time. And I'm just gonna be I'm gonna be honest, I guess the word is.
I've never seen you not be.
I was explaining this to my sister. I explained it in my I Am Loved. And I think, Emily, you were there. I'm going to explain to everybody, like, when I connect to spirits and guides and angels, I don't know how to explain this, but I connect from here, like here, and they're here. They're like around me. That's why when I'm like doing readings and stuff, I'm looking up here because I'm looking back and like out and back. And that's how I listen. Because when I watch myself back, on videos, I'm watching how I move my head and what I do when I'm paying attention to spirit. But when I get what's the word? When I get predictions, so like predictive psychic work, which is different. It's different than this. It's not like this. It's like I see things on a timeline. And I don't have like a time frame. You know how I don't know if anyone's ever gone to a psychic and they're like, oh yeah, by November you're going to have this, and by September you're going to do this. Yeah, me too.
I'm still waiting for it to happen.
Yeah. First off, I've never had one that was accurate. I honestly have never had one that was accurate. And I think that's where I lean away from it. Like, I don't lean into it because I'm like, I don't want to be like all those other people who are like not accurate. But the way that it looks for me is I see a timeline but I don't have durations of time. Like, I don't know. I can't at this point go, oh, it's 6 months out. It's 2 months out. Like, I can't do that. But I forecast things, and I also get things in dreams. And so I have, for a very long time, I'm talking like before Gia was born, so a long time, have seen sort of a collapse in mental systems and processes. And so I have known that was going to happen. I thought it was going to happen during the first presidency, and it didn't. And then because it wasn't a back-to-back, I was like, oh, well, things like that happen where you see things and you're like, oh, maybe I was just, imagining stuff, right? And And then now here we are. And what's happened for me is so much that I kind of saw, and then like I'll have something show up or something will come up on, TikTok, a decision has been made or whatever. I'll all of a sudden get sort of this like, I knew that. Even though I wasn't consciously aware, like I wasn't going, this is going to happen. It's like it happens and I go, oh, that like it almost like needs like, oh yeah, of course. Of course. Like I knew that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird sensation to try to make sense of it when you're yeah, when you are used to like talking to angels and guides. But you know what? My sister asked me a little while back. She goes, "Have you asked your guides or have you asked them about what's happening?" I don't have conversations with them about what's happening.
You don't.
I don't. I don't. And the reason is because I think sometimes we so badly want something one way or the other that we can filter messages coming from spirit to lean into the direction that we want. It's kind of like a pendulum.
I think I've done that before with the pendulum.
Yeah.
Like, even though I'm like not consciously doing that, I think it does happen.
You have to really, really work. When you do pendulum work, I don't mind, my elbow's not down, so I can't do it here. But when you do pendulum work, you really, really have to like clear your mind and not have any attachment to the outcome. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people who, even when they're connecting to their guides or spirit or angels, when we have an attachment to an outcome, it's almost like there's a filter. I kind of think of it like a sieve. Is that what they're called? Like a colander,
Yeah.
a sieve. I forget what they're called.
Yeah.
But it's almost like those are your beliefs. Those are the things that you want. And the information comes through and it filters through your own desires, your own wishes, your own. I think it's really hard when you're attached to a story or a situation to really come with no bias.
Yeah.
So I don't actually ask my angels about or guides what's happening to happen. Like I don't have those conversations with them. What I actually ask instead is how do I serve? That's what I ask. What's my role in this? What am I supposed to do? How do I serve the people that, I'm out here doing this stuff for?
Yeah.
And that I get very clear messages because I am attached to serving. I do believe that that's what I'm here for. And so I think I hear those messages because it is in the act of service. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's not, you're asking, how do I serve from a blank space?
Right.
Right. You're not having like all these beliefs about how you should serve. Yeah.
I just know that I'm supposed to serve.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I know.
That knowing.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in the United States right now. Emily, it says it's disheartening to see this happen. And he is trying to bully Canada and other countries. It's horrific seeing what he's doing to immigrants and how he's trying to normalize it. Yeah. There's really so many things that are happening. And I want to share this before we get into any kind of conversation about specific details. What's happening right now is a strategy. Okay. The strategy is we're going to infiltrate you with as much information and shit coming down. Some of the stuff can't even happen because it's not his place to make it happen. So some of the stuff has to go through Congress. Like we have systems set in place in the United States, but we are bombarded with all of this information about this executive order and now this tariff and then the issue with Colombia and then now there's a president in Africa and I for whatever reason can't remember the country that he's coming from and he's like basically like fuck you. He said I give Americans 24 hours to get out of my country, and we have basically taken over all American businesses in my country. I mean, it's just like this and this and this and this and this. And I will tell you that it's a very normal human experience to feel overwhelmed, overstimulated, all of those things. And so, and if you have any fear, and I think again, normal experience, but fear that stems from a childhood experience where you didn't feel safe, you didn't feel secure, you felt like, I mean, and I'm going to take this a little bit deeper. If you
Mhm.
had past lives, So a lot of us who have witch wounds, we have witch wounds for prior lives. You may have had, maybe you were a part of a war or a resistance. Maybe I mean, they're like past life stuff could also be showing up right now. And so
Mm.
normal experience to be overwhelmed. And then you have trauma and then you have past lives. And you are like,
I want to like what came to me while you're saying that, Isela, is like, okay, let's think about all the women whose abusers have not been held accountable.
oh my God, that's a big one, Nina.
I'm just throwing it out there for us.
That is
Right?
a huge one, Nina.
So if you're activated, we see you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone. Right. And so everything we just said, I'm just want to like add that in there because I think sometimes as survivors of, I don't even know if I can say that word on here, you know, abuse of a nature that has SCX in it. I don't know how they do that whole thing with,
Essay.
SA, we'll call it that here.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a survivor of SA, and your abuser was not held accountable, whether you did or did not speak up, you might be activated right now.
Oh my God, that's huge.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's just SA. I think if you endured emotional abuse, if you were physically abused, I think they're all the levels. If he was narcissistic and everyone thought that you were the one who was like, you were being gaslit the whole time and no one believed you. Oh my God, there's so many things that could be activating you right now. So let's go back to this normal, like overwhelm, because
Mhm.
all this shit is being thrown at us. And here's the thing that happens when a lot of stuff is thrown at us like this. There's so much there's a guy that I follow, his name's Aaron Parnas on TikTok, and he looks like he's this poor guy. If you look at his older videos to now, his eyes are sunk in. He's looking, his skin's a little ashen, his hair's all disheveled, and everybody's like, can you take care of yourself? Can you like get some sleep? Like everyone's like worried about how he's doing, because what happens with the news outlets is that everything is happening so fast, they can't delve deep into each one of these things. So what happens is we get this very superficial, I guess, collection of information. And so it's not enough to keep us informed. And yet we're overwhelmed because there's too many things to process. Our body doesn't know how to respond to it. And so people will shut down.
Yes.
And so then when people shut down, they disconnect from all of the information because it's just too much to process. And that's when decisions get made because people get complacent, people shut down, and then we are so it's like we just don't have enough capacity to be able to take anymore. And yeah, that's when big things are decided upon.
Mhm.
So it's all a strategy. Like we need to understand this. It's all a strategy to get us to this point. And then there will be other people who will react. And in their reaction, because they're afraid, that's where we might to see people come out to play. And it won't be, you know, playing on the monkey bars. People are going to, start
Right.
to do things that may be acts of violence. So, excuse me, we really have to stay vigilant, but I think it's, important to put some space in between, um, yourself and what's happening while staying aware. So one of the suggestions that I had seen a TikTok creator say was to choose 2 or 3 things that you is most important to you, and follow those 2 or 3 things that are most important to you. Get, take breaks, go do things that you enjoy doing. I think the key piece is also just recognizing what do you have control over in this moment. In
Yeah,
this,
and that's I would add to that too. I love that idea of pick 2 to 3 things, the less is more here that matter to you. Something that just really came to me is find out what your lane is and how you serve, right? So I'm really clear on my lane. I'm not, you know, I am not a someone in the government. I am not impacting, policy. I'm not on that level. That is not my lane. But I am helping women and men right now, mostly women, heal their own wounds and create safety in their body so that way they can live in this world that we live in today, and not just live but really thrive. So find out how you serve, and that might be if you are in office in your city or state or federal government. I am so glad that you're there, right? If you're there to serve. But if you're not, that doesn't mean that like something's gone wrong. You have somewhere that you can contribute in your life, whether it's just your local, immediate family or your community around you. That's kind of what's landing for me right now, is that we have to come back to what we can control.
yeah. So I'm going to give you an example of this. I was just thinking of something at some point, and I don't think that it's today, but I think we should at some point talk about the astrology and what it's telling us about this very important time in our lives.
Yeah.
So that's my ADHD just got distracted.
Bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So last night, Trump signed a couple executive orders, and one of which was putting a pause on systems on money that comes to people, any kind of federal dollars. And some of the people that will be affected by this are people who receive Section 8, which is housing assistance, TANF, which is like food allowance assistance, Head Start programs, which I am closely connected to. There's a child, it's called the CCD, it's a child development block. That money goes to programs across the nation to subsidize childcare programming. And, these are working families that rely on childcare. So Head Start and that childcare block, that's going to impact families pretty significantly. Student loans, federal loans, being able to go to college. And most people, unfortunately, these days rely on these loans for school. I believe disabilities is also affected by this. So if you get money for disabilities, I think there were a couple others as well. Trying to think of who else. But what this means is, people's lives are significantly impacted. Oh, Title I schools, which my child goes to a Title I school, and then the breakfast and lunch food program for kids who get assistance for that. So some kids get free breakfast and lunch, while others get a reduced breakfast and lunch. And you have to qualify for that. So these are families who definitely need it. And for some kiddos, this is the only meal that they get. Okay. So we don't know for sure if this is going to happen, because again, this is just flying off. It's like boom, 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 boom. Right now, there are conversations that it's illegal for him to do this. Oh, and he went and fired like 12 people that literally their only job is to make sure that the law, like everything is appropriate, like there's checks and balances, and they're making sure that decisions are made are appropriate decisions and not ones that are illegal. I think they're inspector generals, I think is what they're called. And so like that's illegal. Like there are things that you just can't do because we have systems. So we don't know what's going to happen at 5 o'clock today. But the first thing I thought about when this whole thing came down, of course, I'm thinking about the people that I work with, and I'm kind of like, oh my goodness, what does this mean for their job? I don't know. But what I can do is I can email the school, my daughter's school, or the district even, and say to them, listen, I know no one really knows what's going on, but I have concern for the kids who cannot afford their lunch and their meals for school. Can we create a fund or something to support these kids so they don't have to worry about food?
Yeah.
And so like that's something I can control. I can donate to the ACLU, who I'm telling you, they probably are hiring people working 24 hours a day, trying to figure out how the hell they're going to pay for all this because they're just having to, lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. You can contribute to them. So
Mhm.
you have to, the fires, like there are fires that are still happening right now. You go, okay, what can I do right now? What's within my control right now?
Yeah. As you were talking about these kids, I mean, both Isela and I, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming here, but both you and I came from there. Like when we were children, we were supported and by these, the free and reduced lunch programs at school and breakfast programs, right? So it really just hits close to home. And when you think about children, there's all kinds of adults making decisions in their lives, to include this new cabinet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you're right. Like, tell us more about what the ACLU is. How would we donate there?
So the ACLU, let me pull up exactly what they offer because the ACLU was created right, well, it was enacted around slaves for not for slave but for, I'm sorry, that was not the right decision, or maybe it did come back then. Yeah, so now they have expanded, and oh my goodness, they have like a very easy way to donate money. They're the American Civil Liberties Union, but I'm trying to remember what their history was. I don't know if it was during the civil rights movement or if they actually started to form somewhere underground during the time of slavery or at the back end of slavery. It could have just been during the civil rights. But they are an organization that really, really stands up for Constitution and civil rights laws. And there are a lot of people who, it's all of us who unfortunately have been othered, whether you have gay, lesbian, the LGBTQI, we've got people of color, it's just all the people who come from marginalized communities, and they provide support. They are lawyers, advocates, organizers, and they do what they can to be your voice. And so that's going to look different just depending on the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now they are working. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. I just think that they had like a group of people like that just did the normal work, and I bet you anything they have had to kind of bring other people on to do this work because it's insane. So
Yeah.
let me tell you, I just pulled up their site. Right now it says the most pressing civil liberties issues, and they have listed abortion, immigration rights, racial justice, transgender rights, and voting rights. So they do more than that, but that's kind of what's been identified on their site. So they are an important organization to donate to if you are called to do that, and you can.
Awesome. I find it very interesting that many times that you've said specific words, and I don't know, maybe I'm a little out there today, or maybe it's my computer, but several words have broken up today.
Did that one break up?
In the, not specific to what you were just saying, but a little bit before when you were talking about different people's rights, different groups' rights, it was breaking up for me. So I don't know, Pam and Emily, you're on. Let me know if Isel is breaking up for you at all, because that was breaking up for me. So I know we're on Meta today, so just curious about that.
This censorship scares me, and there aren't very many things that scare me. Like, and I don't know, I say that term, but like in my body, I don't feel afraid. But it scares me from an intellectual place, because
That's me too.
I feel like once we are completely censored, we can't disseminate information and share what our needs are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's that idea of being limited that way is a little like it's a little frightening, you know?
Yeah. And I think one of the things we were talking about, this is a little shift in this. It was one of the things we were talking about right before we went live. We probably could have been going live for like 10 minutes before. You were sharing about like the idea behind what they want to do with education. And I really have like these questions that other people may have for you specifically because of your experience with education. And you want to speak about that, or do you
Yeah.
should wrap up, or how are you feeling?
So, if you follow, if you are not on TikTok, there is a woman who his name is V, and I don't know what her full name is, but she does Under the Desk. And she keeps us updated on what's happening. And she, along with other people, because she's not been the only one, what they have done is they have taken the decisions that Trump has made thus far and aligned it with Project 2025. And it's like literally happening one by one by one. And that's a little frightening, because some of the things coming down the pike is that education is really education in general, dismantling the Department of Education. That also takes away things like services to people with disabilities, children with disabilities. That also takes away like federal loans. These are school loans to go to school. And the idea is to discourage people from going to school, like beyond your, 12 years or 13 years of education. So they want to discourage people from getting a college degree. And the reason is, even though it's not explicit in there, is that when you have this type of society, this culture, people, they don't want you to think critically about situations. They don't want you to question the decisions that are made. They kind of want to keep you dumb. And so this is where a lot of people have these perspectives about college students being woke, that the educational systems are pushing people into believing and thinking certain things, when in fact, really what they're just doing is posing questions. That's what a good teacher does, is they pose questions. They give you information. Maybe it might be history, it might be perspectives, it may be ideologies, it may be just lots of different things that we can have some discourse about. And then they ask questions like, what do you think about that? And why do you think that's so? And what in your history, in your cultural lens, why do you think that is true? All of these questions help us generate diverse perspectives. That's the whole point of like your educational experience. You do information, you learn some foundational theories, ideas, beliefs, and approaches. And it may be, again, from all different places. And then you generate your own lens and perspectives. That's kind of the process of just school in general. So they want to just kind of limit that. so that there isn't this idea of questioning, of asking the whys. Just do as you're told and be happy and content with that. The other thing is they want to push fertility. So they want to push people having babies as opposed to going to school. This is actually captured in the document. And so there was a couple different people, because I did a little bit of research with it. I've downloaded the document. I've kind of started reading. This was up, I think, in the first 20 pages. It's like I forget, it's like several hundred, I'd say it's like 900 pages, this document. And
Mm.
within the first 20 pages, that's what it identified. Yeah.
Wow. I'm just like really taking in everything that you're saying. And I really want to kind of bring a little bit of discussion around it. So, based on what I know about the human mind and experience, and my own experience with education, I am all for dismantling education as it was when I was going through school and when I was in college. uh, it wasn't what you just, I'd never had that experience ever. And it never taught me to think for myself. I was taught to, basically study, get all the answers memorized, and flush them after a test. And I was never taught to critically think. And so that system, I'm all for changing it. But the result that you're talking about that they're really wanting, and the reason why they're dismantling it, it feels like to me that you could basically convince people that you're dismantling that to do something great with it. But it doesn't sound like that's what they're doing. It doesn't sound like, oh, we know how the human mind works, and
Yeah.
we're gonna really teach you how to not memorize and to use education for your benefit. And that's not what I'm hearing you say. So can you share about that? Because like we obviously know, like if we continue the way that education is now, are we really supporting people in their growth? Are we holding them to this whole 9 to 5, type of environment?
So that's a lot to unpack there. So where I'm going to start is that what I was describing was really university type of experiences and having like discourse and conversation. You're a millennial, I believe, right? Or like a young Gen Z.
I was born in 79. So I
Okay,
don't
so
know.
you are a young Gen Z. I'm sorry, not Gen Z, Gen X. Gen X. I'm a Gen Xer. The reason why I ask this is because depending on who was in charge of education was like kind of like the administration, the president who was responsible for education acts that were established during our pivotal times, our elementary and middle school and high school years. You come at the back end when assessment really started to be a primary focus. So what happened with this generation, the generation that you were in, is that there was a lot of teach to the test because the educational system became more about accountability. Why did it become accountability? Because they were trying to say, how much are we paying our teachers? Why are we paying them? Are they actually getting the results that we need? And so they started to tie teacher pay with student outcomes. And they
Oh.
didn't take into account that some of these kiddos don't get meals each day. Some of these kiddos come from trauma. Some of these kiddos, like there was no account of that. And so if the schools did well, then teachers got paid and the schools got money. So the better that the kids did, the more money the schools would receive. And again, it was attached to teacher pay as well. And so that generation of kiddos really, unfortunately, got good at test taking. And it was less about learning and critical thinking and more about how to take a test and do well on the test. So that was a generation. I think it's a little bit different now. Things are evolving a little. Well, they were. I don't know where we're going to be, in the next 5 years. But here's another thing. Our educational system has been built on a 100-year-old model. The way it was built 100 years ago was to actually produce workers for manufacturing plants.
Mhm.
So the idea was to make people, excuse me, to work in like warehousey kind of places. So they wanted you to be complacent. They wanted you to do what you need to do, what you needed to do, and not really think about things. And so it was intended from the very beginning to create an educational system to just train you to do this manual labor type of work. It also kept us limited in what our knowledge and understanding of the world was. So it almost forced us to not get a real education. It forced us to get to this what we believe is important for people to know, but it really isn't important. And so there's been conversations over the last many years about school reform. The problem is, and this is me talking, Isela, somebody who's worked in education for a very long time, if we teach people things that matter, like financial literacy, how to do your taxes, how to get a home, how to write incredible stories, to do the things that really matter in the world, then we give people, particularly people who have been othered, people of color, a lot of personal power. If we give these people a lot of personal power, then they have the ability to rise. And we don't want them to rise. We want them to have the perception that they can make incredible, choices in life and, live the American dream. But it's a perception because we weren't actually prepared to do that, in life, that we weren't prepared in our educational system. So I do agree with you, Nina, that the way that our system has been built has not been effective.
Mhm.
But what's happening right now is that there's a push to create these these fundamental Christian based schools, and that's what they're saying will be the priority for people, where they will get funding to send kids to these Christian based schools, because that's the push. And there was
They can keep programming you the same way that they used to if they do that.
there was a creator, a young person who grew up in this kind of home. And she said the thing is about the people who very much believe in what he's trying to do, or what he says he's going to do, and even what Project 2025 stands for, is that the people who believe in this believe in it like it is going to save America. Like they believe in their whole heart that
Mm.
if they pushed Jesus and they pushed these very fundamental beliefs about the man's role and the woman's role and having a family, that with their entire soul, they think that that's what's going to save people from sin and demise and the things that are just are bad for humanity. But it's such a core belief that they don't have an understanding or even the openness to see the importance of diverse perspectives, ideas, approaches in life.
Oh,
Yeah.
my heart. Oh, I just really needed to take a deep breath right there because, it's really hard not to relate and have compassion for those humans who are literally driven by fear.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They have such a core belief and they're very rigid in their nervous system and their unconscious mind that literally this is going to help. This is going to help and save everyone from, terrible things. And I understand. And, I could stay in the place of being angry about it, or I can just feel lots of love because
Yeah.
I am you, you are me. I at one time would have believed that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Really would have believed that. And I'm just really sitting with that in my heart right now.
What we know for sure, just with years and years and years of reading this, one of the most effective ways to understand who we are as a general population, as people, as human beings, is to listen to other perspectives, to have diverse conversations, to talk about the what, the whys, and the hows of your life. It helps us expand our awareness by understanding that other people can have a different perspective than your own.
Yeah.
And that's how we grow. That's how we learn. And I think that that's what people are afraid of. So, like, even these global conversations that are happening between the Chinese and now across the world, I think people, are afraid of us becoming aware or awakened, not only just the awakening of ourselves, but aware to what really happens in other places of the world, because we've been fed a lot of information that has not been accurate.
Yeah, and Isel and I are gonna talk about this most likely tomorrow, but we're gonna talk about complex PTSD, complex trauma, and having complex trauma, you develop a sense of rigidity in your mind and body, and you are fearful of even. I remember even myself. I was so afraid of having conversations like Isela and I are having right now. You could not have paid me to have a conversation like this a year ago. No, especially with the amount that I don't know, right? I literally will tell you I have no idea about a lot of things. But in the past, because I had so much fear in my body about saying I don't know, and that was because of unhealed complex trauma. We don't want to have these conversations. I'm so afraid. I was so afraid of somebody having a different belief than me, a different viewpoint than me, a different, like it was in the body though, right? And so we're going to talk about that. And so it makes a lot of sense that there's fear driving it all. And if we can really have open conversations, but you see it on the news, you see it with debates, you see it like they can't drop. See, the thing is they're in their mind, they're in the unhealed part of them who's trying to defend, and they cannot drop into their heart.
Yeah. The bias is very real. We have, every one of us has implicit bias. And before we end today, there's oh gosh, what is she? What was her name? Maybe somebody who's watching knows her name. Bishop Margaret, I think her name was it Margaret?
Recently,
Yeah.
let me just look. I'm sure if I just type in Bishop, she's going to show up like first person.
So
weird, she didn't.
So she gave the talk and at her church, and the president, his wife, the vice president and his wife were there. And really, it was just a plea. It was a plea to just be aware of people's lives and the fear that they're living with. She identified trans kiddo or trans people. I always go to kiddos just because I've worked with kids, but trans people, members of the LGBTQIA group, which also includes trans people. She talked about, our undocumented people and families and the fear that they're living with, and just to have compassion. So she came from such a heart. I felt it. This is one of the things where I say there are many paths. There are many paths. Like we talk about spirituality and awareness and all these things. There are many paths. And when I heard her talk, like I could feel the love in her heart. But when you watch the newscasts about her talking, it is unbelievable how they slammed that, how she was being disgraceful, how she was just coming in like this and her attitude was like this. And I'm like, I don't even understand how you see that. Like, I don't understand how you could see these acts of empathy and love. And she's just pleading for these people, these marginalized, like we come from marginalized communities, and she's pleading, she's just saying, can you just notice, right?
Yes.
And thank you, Emily. Her book is How to Learn to Be Brave.
And her name is
I did not know that book.
Marianne.
What was that?
Marianne is her name, I believe.
Marianne, Bishop Marianne. Thank you. And on the Daily Show, they actually took snippets of her talk, and then they plugged in how the newscasters, the news people, were responding to her words. And I'm curious. I wonder about that.
Yeah.
My heart hurts, but I don't understand how. I mean, I do understand. I can intellectually tell you why that happens. I mean, that's the lens that they're filtering their experiences through. There's a belief system, there's a value system, there are reasons. But when we drop into our heart space, can you really hear her and not see, not feel, not understand what she was really saying?
There's just not
Yeah.
a way, like, if you, but here's the thing, we are asking that people are able to drop into their heart space,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is a huge ask
Yeah.
for humans, right? In this climate. And then I'm with you there. There's just no way you could have just listened to it and not felt her heart. And Emily said she spoke about she was acting in true Christianity, and for me, she was and like in alignment with Christ consciousness, right? She was like showing up completely in her heart and vulnerable.
Mhm.
And there was no, I didn't feel any kind of
Contention.
yeah,
There
no,
was no contention. There was no ick. She was really coming from the heart space. And I just was astounded
yeah. She
by
couldn't
the
have done better.
reaction to it.
Yeah. She couldn't have
Yeah.
done any better. I mean, even like think about the many women who are, other women maybe that are bishops that might have, had some contention,
Right.
because I could feel that like she had love in her heart for the family she was speaking to,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
And the human she was talking to.
Mhm.
Even, maybe I don't know how she did it. I'd like to talk to her and see if she was like picturing him as a little boy or something. I was like trying to think about that. Like, was she picturing him as like his inner child? I don't know, but like, it was
Yep.
so good. So good.
Yeah. And it was so brave. It was so brave. And I think more than anything else, she was a good example for the rest of us to be brave.
Yeah, very good example. I don't know if I could, with the same, I might not be at that level yet,
Mhm.
that place yet. But it was something like I admire and inspire to be able to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah.
hmm
Her words were gentle and loving, Pam. Yeah. Emily says, I'm not religious, but you exactly said the right thing about being authentic and genuine. Yeah.
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 hmm
So I think that's a real, and you said something, Nina, that you said, I don't know if I'm there yet or I'm that yet. I think that one of the things that when we see people who show up that way, to just if that's something that we look at and we honor and we go, okay, that is an amazing example of being brave. What I do, instead of like compare myself to her, because I'm not her, I
Yeah.
go, in what ways can I be brave? If
Oh,
being
yeah.
brave is important to me, in what ways can I be brave?
I love that. Yeah. Thank you for that. It's great, great, great coaching. I receive it. Right. It's like how, if you can see it, in what
Yeah.
ways can I be brave? And, I have to say, the woman had the most, we work with the nervous system, and I was watching her, right? I was watching her body. I was watching her, not words, but language. And we can be brave when we're willing to feel the discomfort in our body.
Hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
And say the thing and show up anyway. And
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, thank you for that invitation, because I'm thinking about ways I can be brave now.
Yeah, all the ways that we can be brave. So
Mhm.
we're going to leave with that, folks. Like, we can perceive this as a very scary experience. Right now, I'm just information gathering. That's what I'm doing. And if fear comes up for me or uncertainty comes up for me, I let it show up and I say, thank you for showing up for me. That's my way of being a human. Like, But it's information gathering. I am also just ensuring that, you know, I keep myself, my body safe. And that just noticing what, if this is something I feel strongly about, what can I do right now? What can I do? And that might change 3 weeks from now. We don't share. We're only a week and a day in, 2 days in.
It feels like it's
3 weeks from now,
weird.
we don't know what this is going to look like. So we're just going to take it moment by moment and go, what can I control in this moment? And everything else, I am just being the observer, being the observer.
Yeah. Thank you. God bless you, ladies. God bless you, ladies, for these talks each day. Sending you big love, sister.
Sending you big love. All right, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.